Hi, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me. So thanks a lot for joining today's webinar. And it is our privilege to have BrioHR to join us in our webinar today. And as you know, BrioHR has been working closely with us on a couple of activities. And today we have none other than the CEO of BrioHR himself, Benjamin, or we call him as Ben. So Ben, has made some time today to share with you all on the topic of recruitment to retention, building a strong workforce through talent management and employee engagement. So I hope you will make the best use of this webinar today to enlighten yourself on this topic, recruitment to retention, and how do we build a strong workforce through talent management and employee engagement, which is one of the challenge that companies are facing today. Sometimes it's easy to recruit, but difficult to retain. So how can we do that? What are the steps, methodology, what kind of tools that we need to employ? So today, Ben himself would present to you, share with you, and he will later take on questions from you. So I hope you find this session fruitful, and we have more to come. And this is something at the beginning, something to get started off this year. And of course, earlier on, you managed to witness our upcoming conference video. So we are encouraging as many of you all to attend the conference. And Brio HR is our gold sponsor for the conference as well. So you see you see Ben live. And if you want to see Ben in person, join us at the conference on 8th of June at Berjaya Times Square. So apart from Brio HR, we have almost 60 other exhibitors who's going to showcase their products, solutions, and so on. So with that, thank you for joining us today. And I'm going to hand over to Ben to share with you on the topic recruitment to retention. Ben, over to you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Arul, for having me. Thanks a lot to the Malaysia HR Forum team for putting this together. I mean, it's been a lot of coordination and so on. So it was really well done, and I hope we are in for a great session. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. As Arul was sharing, I will share a bit of what we know, what we do at BrioHR, and also myself, as my passion is around HR since more than I can remember, around talent management, talent engagement in the pursuit of optimal recruitment to retention. We know it's not easy. We always struggle with many people challenges. Therefore, it's important that we have the right processes in place and the right mindset. So throughout the presentation, we have some time today, but having said that, we cannot cover everything like this in 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, right? So I'll try to share as much as I can, but it's really a discussion that is supposed to be ongoing. Each of you in your companies, with your colleagues, with your managers, with your teams, it has to be really something that is matured over the short, mid, and long term and put in place progressively. But still, during this 1 hour, I will try to share an overview, kind of some of the things, or at least a good broad view of the things that we have to consider when we are doing such a job that requires full-time attention and constant persistence, and sometimes going beyond challenges, people challenges, fatigue challenges as well, and so on. So again, that's what I will try to share. Maybe I will first share a bit more about who we are at BrioHR, so at least you know who you are talking to and who is sharing this information with you today, where we come from, why do we have something to say in this, and in the short form is that we talk to hundreds and thousands actually of HR professionals, company leaders throughout the year, all the time. So we gathered and synthesized some best practices in order to share with you today. So without further ado, I will now share my screen, and I will share the slides that we will go through today. Okay, so first, a bit of a icebreaker in a way. What does BrioHR means. We are called BrioHR as a company. It's always very important to say the name of the company, obviously. So what does BrioHR means? It's very important for me to share that because, of course, it's fun to know that, but also it's what we are constantly striving for. Basically, brio means vigor or vivacity of style or performance. So it's kind of doing things in a flamboyant way. So what we are really trying and why Brio even exists as a company is to bring change to the market of human resources software. Bring change in terms of going beyond, I would say, a transactional view of HR and help companies attract, engage, retain, and so on their employees. Okay, so do it with Brio, manage your employees with Brio, and I hope you will enjoy the session today. So very quick words around BrioHR. So who we are the fastest growing HR and people management platform in Southeast Asia. So we are a Malaysian company, Malaysia based, but we serve clients in the whole region and actually beyond in Europe, in the US, in Africa, in pretty much everywhere. We were the third company in history from Malaysia to be part of the world leading technology accelerator called Y Combinator. So we were proud of it. We received many accolades from Malaysian ecosystem players. So it's something that we are proud. And again, it's a testimony of the mindset of innovation, excellence, and most of all, value addition that we constantly pursue. I will not dwell on this very much, but we serve companies in all different sectors of finance, with Touch and Go, Settle, very famous ones, e-commerce, manufacturing as well, education with very well-known and leading schools for kids, but also for grown-ups, retail, media, F&B, and many others, including listed companies, small and big, and so on. What do we do? Once again, I will go very fast on this, but basically we offer three pillars, I would say, of activities. So in one single platform, one is what we call the admin automation, leave management, payroll management, expense management, employee data, and so on. Talent acquisition with recruitment and onboarding, and employee and talent development with performance management, pulse surveys as well. What we like very much, enough of the platform and so on, what we like very much is actually to contribute to the community. And I think what also led us to, to work quite a lot and quite closely and hopefully even closer in the future with Malaysia HR Forum is on slightly different levels, I would say, and maybe also slightly different frequency. I cannot say anything else that I'm impressed by what Malaysia HR Forum is providing in terms of day-to-day value to everyone with the guides, with the Q&A in the different social media networks, in the groups and so on. I'm really amazed by what we do. And we are united in a way by the desire to contribute to the community. So we also, create some guides like payroll guide, recruitment guide, engagement guide. I will come back to that, but I encourage you to go on our website and to check those guides if you want, because they are a more detailed version of what I will share in a minute. We organize events, much simpler events, again, than the one that Arul was mentioning just before, and the amazing video we've seen at the beginning of the webinar. But we organize events from time to time, informal gatherings to, take the pulse of the HR community. What are the challenges? What can we share? How can we help each other? And so on. And we also run some podcasts, once again, inviting some people in the industry, not necessarily HR professionals, but people who have to do with people management, company performance, and so on, and listening to them on specific topics. So it's really important for us to be part of it as well. I will probably skip actually this part, but the point is that we see ourselves as an extension of your team, if you want. So we are not consultants per se. We really provide a platform, a software, but the way we do it is to consider ourselves as as a friend, as an extension of your team. I will skip this one again, as well as this one. Happy to talk about our clients another time and so on. So let's get on to recruitment to retention, the main topic of the webinar today. The one thing that I would like to mention first, just to take Arul on his own words, we will be at the conference roughly a month from now, and indeed I will be there in person. So if you have questions, obviously feel free to ask them during the webinar itself today. But as I said, in 1 hour we cannot cover everything and solve everything. If it was that easy, I don't think we would even need this kind of webinar and so on. But it's not that easy, and there is a lot of discussion to have. So what I would really encourage you strongly to do is to reach out to us. I would say the Malaysia HR Forum team for sure, the BrioHR team, and we'll have some contact details at the end of the presentation. But also come to the conference and let's have a good time together. Let's chat together across any topic that keeps you up at night, as we say. All right. So the very first thing that is obvious, I will touch on it just before, is that every company, every day, and honestly, it's not new, since the dawn of time, have trouble finding the right talent, identifying who is best fit for the companies, attracting them in the companies, and then making sure that not only they are motivated and give their best, but also that they stay over the long run. And of course, it's a very small, very quick selection of headlines, but there is a problem with talent. I used to be part of a CEO and entrepreneur group, and it's funny because we were all sharing about the same. We were all saying, and we would all come from different industries, manufacturing, consulting, tech, and everyone was not complaining, but saying that talent is the most difficult challenge. But we also know that no company can exist without the right people. So we see those headlines every time, every day, and so on. And what someone, I would say, a bit more experienced, to not say older than us, was sharing during these gatherings is that it's not a 2023 issue. It's not a 2022 issue. It's not 2021 or 2020 or whenever issue. It's an issue that was discussed in the same way in the 90s and probably long before. So it's still super important to note that today we have more and more tools. We still have the same struggles in terms of finding, identifying, attracting, retaining, and so on, but we have now a lot more tools and a lot more industry knowledge as a whole to do a better job. So again, what I would like to start with is talking about mindset a bit. It's very important to have the right mindset. And I will finish the session by very practical, almost checklists. It will be a bit heavy at the end, those checklists, because there are quite a few, like tick boxes with some suggestions, recommendations that we make. But it's actually very simple. It's a lot of work. Again, otherwise, if it was that easy, it would not be a problem we would have to talk about. But it's something that can be taken step by step by step. And it starts with the right mindset. And I'm talking about people mindset, but also company mindset, otherwise referred to as company culture. I will take a very example of how important it is to have talent, because often when we are in the HR field, like most of us are, I think, we are not always taken seriously. Yeah, people engagement, yeah, people management, but we have to invest and we have to get the margin and we have to have this great machine to automate this and that and so on. So it's always a bit difficult, I feel, to my despair, to be fully recognized in terms of the central piece of the puzzle as HR, because that's what I think, and I believe that's what most of us think. HR is really at the center. So I have this example of a client of ours called SHF Services. SHF Services is one of the top B2B caterer in Malaysia. For example, their two main brands will be Daily School. They offer to manage all the canteens in different schools of any scale. I think they work with some of the largest schools in the country. And Food Corp, which is corporate catering. Basically, they manage canteens in manufacturing sites or any company headquarters and so on. They work with like IKEA, Dyson, some big brands like this. And actually, they were already for some time one of the leading B2B caterer in Malaysia. Then the COVID-19 pandemic happened, and for a job like them, when we had to work from home, there was very little activity and so on. They almost had to close. They had to furlough most of their employees, like 99% literally of their employees. They had to lose all the stocks because they had food in the fridges that would not be used for weeks. So they had to basically throw them away, no choice. So it was very difficult for them, but they ended up weathering the storm. And not a lot of companies can say that in their industry or in other industries. I believe all of us are here because our respective companies managed somehow to weather the storm, but it was definitely not easy. We know it. And it's still actually not easy for many other reasons, but they managed to do that. So they recovered, and then something a bit unexpected happened, but they started to grow way, way, way faster than what they were before the pandemic. The reason was exactly what I said earlier. They were the only ones, among the only ones, let's say, to have survived the COVID and being as operational as fast as they were. So the growth was super fast. Business comes in, but, and I think you see me coming, lack of people to fulfill all orders. So basically, all the contracts requests, all the new clients wanting to, call SHF services because they had proven that they could survive and so on, they just couldn't entertain. So they had to refuse businesses and contracts. The point is very simple, is to say that getting the right talent, attracting them, motivating them, is not a fancy word. It's really making the company stronger. It's really about accepting a contract, delivering the contract. Top line, top line, top line, revenues, 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 and also efficiency, bottom line, bottom line, bottom line. Bottom line, what does it mean? It means salaries to employees, hopefully bonus to employees, and so on. So it's really the core of the company. Can we actually do business, and can we fulfill the demand that is there in the market? So who should care about that? Obviously, everyone. By everyone, I mean every single company. There is no company on earth, as far as I know, where human is not the key component. We have different roles, we have different responsibilities, but each of us and all our colleagues, 100% of them, have a role to play in the company. We all have this, we all need talent, and we all need to keep them. I think what's very important is to empathize with the people we want in our companies. For instance, if you ask someone who wants a better life, I don't know many people who would not say yes, me, to this question. Who wants a great job? Who wants a meaning in their job? Who wants a meaning in their life? Who wants more salary? Who wants, growth opportunities? Who wants everything? Who wants to be able to be as passionate as can be when it comes to work? I'm not one to say that work should be passion necessarily. For many people, it is. But I'm not making it a must. I think realistically, we all have our passions, which can be, gardening or football or whatever, but it still can be possible, and it has to be possible as much as we can to be happy in our work. So when I say empathize with the people you want in your company, what I really mean is it's our responsibility, all of us, to acknowledge that whichever colleague in whichever role, junior, frontliner, office worker, top management, ourselves, we are just humans aspiring for meaning, better life, great job, provide for our family, and so on and so on. So I think it's common sense, but honestly, I feel sometimes that it is missing. I'm talking to dozens of company leaders, HR professionals, day in, day out, and sometimes I have to remind that, hey, but do you know that you are not the only human aspiring for a better this and that in the company? That every single person, no matter where they're from, no matter which country they're from, no matter which training background and everything, everyone is united by this. So first, when you want to attract people and retain them, first care about them, care about what they think. And I think that's really an important thing in the mindset. And even if we are, sensitive to this, sometimes we might forget it in the name of a process or this kind of things, budget or anything. But I think it's very important to not forget about this. Um, I think it's super important to provide consistent. Consistency is also what brings trust and what brings the visibility and the comfort that we all want. Consistent, good employee experience. And it's not easy. It's not easy. Again, there are so many steps from recruitment to up to exit, including like a career development in between and so on and so on. We know that it's not easy, that there is a lot to do, but it is necessary. So there is no shortcut. We need to strive for every single step of the process to be as good as we can. And it's not about seeing and stopping because it's a mountain to climb, but it's more saying step by step by step, process by process by process. And I will again share a bit more details on this in a minute. And that's also what we are striving for at BrioHR since we were created. All companies, no matter their typology, need to attract and retain the talent. We will have the same issues. Companies with office-based employees, they compete maybe with other similar companies, but also maybe technology giants or key consumer brands. I don't know, L'Oreal, whatever. The big e-commerce players like Lazada, Shopee. So we all have big brand names we can fight for, unless we are one of them. And I think most of us are not one of them. But it doesn't matter if we have office-based employees or a mix of office-based and, let's say, warehouse employees, field employees, retail outlet employees, and so on. It's all a challenge that unites us and for which it's good to share best practices and tips and so on. So whose job it is to make that happen in the company, to ensure that everything is going well? It's actually the job of top management. Bear with me. You can imagine that it's not my final say on this, but it's the job of top management. Yeah, top management needs to be involved. There is no secret around that. And if not, they need to be brought in and convinced so that they end up being involved. And why I'm insisting on this is because even though, as you can guess, they will not be the only ones I talk about, it's super important that they play an active role. They are still top management, the figure of the company. They are the budget owners. They are the decision makers. If they themselves think, and if I say that, it's also because I've met many who are this way. Sometimes they joke about it themselves, about being too, sorry, but their expression usually is, hey, yeah, I'm a Chinaman. I want to run my company as a Chinaman company and so on. Fine, but in fact, the very fact that they are joking about this makes me confident that in fact, they are very well aware that they need to be involved and do something when it comes to managing people and engaging people. So top management. Of course, not only top management. I would argue that middle management is key. In every study, in every discussion we have and the observation we made is that middle management is really where it breaks. The messaging can be clear from the top management. The employees, the entry-level employees are motivated. They want to do a good job. Very few people come in the morning say, oh, I hope I will do a very bad job today. Like they want to do a good job. But if there is no link, if there is no continuity in the message at the different management layers, it just breaks. And if it breaks, then it's as if it never existed. So it's very, very important to make sure that middle management, every layer you might have in your companies, depending on the size of it, 1, 2, 3, 4 middle management layers, every single middle manager, every person who has other people reporting to him or her, need to be provided with guidelines. How to behave. What are you evaluated on? What are you observed on as an individual, as a professional? What is the messaging that you need to convey to the team? What is the levels of rigor, discipline that you have to conduct? And they also need the right tools, because as we all know, middle managers, they tend also to be probably the busiest people in companies. So if we ask them to be really the messengers, the one conveying and making sure that the guidance, the company mission, vision, and culture doesn't break, we have to also equip them with the right tools. They cannot do everything manually, otherwise, or they will not do it, or they will do it, but maybe not in the optimal way, or they will just forget about something else and do this perfectly and not something else. So anyway, they have to have some kind of tools to be efficient. Middle management to me is probably one of the most important. And of course, the employees. The employees themselves are the best ambassadors of the company. So when you want to attract people, first, make sure that your company is attractive. How do you make sure your company is attractive? Is by people saying good things about being employed at your company. If people go around and are genuinely satisfied by their work conditions, and it's true for all employees, I'm not talking about digital native or anything. I'm talking about younger, older, digital savvy, not digital savvy, Malaysians, non-Malaysians. Remember what I was saying earlier, everyone is a human and wants to have a good day at work if possible. Doesn't mean they prefer to be at work than at home again, but they want a good day at work. So employees need to be turned into ambassadors for the company. Internally, it's very important to have employees talking to each other and basically reflect on the fact that the company is a great company, that people, colleagues are great people, great colleagues, that they feel being cared about, and so on. That way, it will reinforce and create a community feeling that really um, helps with the retention. I've seen countless situations where I had this happen. And some employees who would leave the company and 1 year later would come back, sometimes earlier, sometimes a bit later, would come back to the company and we would say, yeah, but we cannot offer you a different salary than when you left. Actually, you're roughly occupying the same position. And otherwise it will set a precedent. They say, yeah, but no, I understood what it is to work in this company or to work with another company. And actually, even if the salary is a bit lower, of course, salary is key. So let's not pretend we can and we should attract people with lower salary. But in those cases, the company culture outweighed the pure salary component. Again, it was not a huge difference. Otherwise, I don't think it's possible. Let's not hide it. Hide the obvious. Salary is important. But then when this employee came back to the company, they would share to all others their story, their experience, and so on. Imagine the impact of a single employee who leaves your company to join another one and then comes back. It's huge because they will say, hey, I've seen outside. It looked good, but actually I'd rather stay here if I were you. That's why I came back. So internally, you have to turn your employees into ambassadors, into advocates. If you want to do so, again, do you care about them? Do they feel cared about? Do they feel that they have meaning? And again, let's not, because I hear it often, that's why I keep coming back on this, let's not have an excuse of, yeah, but it's a basic job. Yeah, but it's just a pure transactional job. We cannot engage them. It's not true. Other companies do it. It's possible to do, especially if we have not tried everything in our power. So ambassadors internally and of course externally. externally. There are many social networks where you evaluate your company as a current or former employee. Candidates look at these kind of things. There are some agencies, or recruiting agencies and so on, advising employees to join this or that company. They also want more candidates, more workforce supply in a way. So they will not say, hey, go to this company, which is very bad, because they will be afraid that this person doesn't ask them for help next time. So employees should be seen as potential ambassadors of the company. So it's our job as HR professionals to do whatever it takes to turn them into ambassadors. It's not them being good and bad, good or bad. It's really about us doing the necessary things. They need to know what's done right in the company and be encouraged to promote it. So they really need to be communicated that the company is actually doing this or that. Oh, we did this, I don't know, Mother's Day celebration. Oh, we need this, charity event, fundraising event, whatever it is. But basically, feel free and actually push on communicating simply, emails. Maybe you have digital notice boards or notice boards, physical notice boards to do it, but be the marketeer of your company activities, of your company benefits, of your company well-being for employees. Okay. So obviously, I mentioned top management, middle management, employees. HR professionals can be any of those. Can be top managers, can be middle management, can be employees. But obviously, it still felt that the stakeholder was missing. Obviously, HR is a super important stakeholder in all this. But I did on purpose not include HR in the previous slide, because in a lot of companies, and I'm talking once again about mindset, it feels like HR is in charge of everything. So if you have a bad manager who is not nice, who is not constructive, who doesn't care about the company mission, vision, values, whatever, it's as if it's the job of HR to recover that. But no. That's why I come back to this. It's super important that those people, which include HR, by the way, need to be the actors of the company culture, of the company ambassadorship. So HR, of course, is a key stakeholders, but they are not the only one in charge of getting this right. They are still the key player. They are the enabler. They are the facilitator. They support all the stakeholders we mentioned before. So that same example of the so-called bad manager not being nice, not being constructive, not being fair, and so on, even though HR doesn't have to fix in the view of the team of this bad manager, HR definitely has to fix the manager, him or herself. So yeah, of course, HR has more responsibility because they are the ones making sure, they are the guardian, I would say, of the company culture, of the fact that everything is going as per plan, in respect with the company vision and mission. It's a lot of work, but it's not at all the same work that we sometimes think. Yeah, it's HR, so they will make sure people are happy. And if people are not happy, it's because of HR. It's not the case directly, but it's the case that if people are not happy, HR is the one investigating, understanding, and maybe taking action to correct whatever has been wrongly happening, whatever has been breaking in terms of messaging. Maybe, again, behavior of someone was not up to par with the company values, anything. So HR is really the enabler as well, is the one who has to design the processes to ensure they are enforced, but not to enforce them once again. So HR is not a substitute to managers or other individual contributors, but they need to make sure that the processes are followed, are enforced, and they should be the trusting companion for all the stakeholders that we listed previously. It's a journey, and it's a journey that never stops. If at some point we stop working on the culture, then it will just turn into something that I often say, no culture, is almost always a bad culture. Okay, so all this, as we understood, revolves around culture. It all comes down to culture, and there is no company that can say culture doesn't matter at my company. And not all companies can say, oh, company culture is great. It's really a constant work, conscious work that everyone in the company should be involved in, spearheaded by HR, enabled, facilitated by HR. Some actionable tips when it comes to culture. So first of all, very importantly, there is something that I often see as the paralysis via analysis when it comes to culture, to company culture. Many people are not sure about what to do. They are not sure about how to do it. What are the steps to creating a culture? We feel that today, maybe there is not much culture. Maybe we thought that culture was not that important in our kind of industry with the kind of employees we have, which again is not the case. So the problem is that then many people will not get started on working on culture until they have the perfect culture design. And my point here, my statement here that I want to share with everyone is there is no perfect culture. Great company culture can take many, many forms. What is sure is that no culture is always a bad culture. It's always too individualistic. People are not aligned enough. If there are not enough rules or best practices, some people will go overboard in one way or another. Maybe not pulling their weight, maybe sometimes being reacting too strongly or aggressively to something. Whatever it is, it's if there is no overall culture that everyone can, live by, it will end up being a bad culture. So start small, start simple, and I will again help a bit below. But every single company needs culture. Culture should be something natural to perpetuate day in, day out. And it can evolve over time. The point here is that if culture design, again, I've seen culture design done wrong. If culture design is too complex to implement, it's as good as a bad culture. It's as good as no culture, which ends up in bad culture. Because it has to be something that is natural, that is day in, day out, that we don't have to do some crazy efforts to maintain. We have to, pay attention to it, make sure that people live by it and apply the principles and so on. But it should not be something too hard to implement. Again, simpler is better. Culture should not be about we have to make the best car bumpers. I took a random example, but it should be driven by people actions, themselves being driven by observable behavior. We should strive for, we should, always do that. We should aim at. That's actually influencing the employees' behaviors more than setting an aspiring goal that there is no link whatsoever with the day-to-day, meaning that yeah, it's cool, we are a car bumper company, let's make the best car bumpers, but what's next? What's the impact on myself as an employee tomorrow? So rather than saying you have to make sure that the car bumpers are given the utmost care when thinking about your end clients. Whatever, I'm making this up, but I think you get my point. So it should be driven by people actions, themselves driven by observable behavior. Do you strive for this? Do you strive for that? And usually those observable behaviors that you want to influence people actions in the companies, they are themselves defined in terms of company values. Values are the foundation of culture. As I said earlier with the culture overall, don't overdo it. Something small and simple that works is way better than fancy that no one can apply. To give an example of BrioHR values, we have 4 values, which is considered not many actually in many standards, but actually we wonder whether we should only focus on 3, but we in the end settled on 4. The 4 values we have at BrioHR, just to share our own experience. And again, it's a journey. It's not easy to set the culture at BrioHR either. But the 4 values are trust. Trust is the very first value we promote. Respect, ownership, and excellence. So trust and respect, it's really about behave well with people, with colleagues, with clients, with prospects, with anyone, with vendors, with everyone. So that's very easy actually for people to observe. Trust and respect. Don't insist too much for someone who doesn't want to go at an after work event. That's respecting this person's preferences and life choices and whatever. Excellence still means that, hey, we respect each other, but we are not here just to be laid back and talk and laugh with each other. We are here to actually deliver. And ownership is, you don't want to be micromanaged? Fine. I also don't want to micromanage you. But then show me, along with the trust, that you can be an owner. Maintain the trust, build and reinforce the trust, and I will not micromanage you. And everyone will be better because of this. Again, that's just BrioHR example. It's not applicable to every and all company, but it's all about making it simple. We are not saying smile. Smile could be something, could be considered a value. Smile every day. It's fine. Some people don't smile every day. Does it mean they are bad professionals? I don't think so. But trust, respect, non-negotiable. Excellence, non-negotiable. We have to deliver the best software for our clients so that they are happy with it. And ownership, once again, you don't want to micromanage, to be micromanaged. I don't want to micromanage, we do that. But it's not about forcing you to be someone different than you are, forcing you to smile when you enter the office. Maybe you first need a coffee or whatever, tea or anything, natilema. But it's really about making it easy to follow, yet meaningful as a value. Okay, so the bottom line here is, don't try to influence personality, focus on behavior. And here I have a very simple culture framework. So again, it's super simple. Once again, I could talk hours about that, going a bit further, probing with questions and finding, together your own, company culture that would be implementable very quickly and so on. We could do that. But in this high level overview of this topic and a few others that will follow, let's just stay at a quicker overview. So a simple culture framework basically is as follows. First, start with the company goals. What are the company goals to begin with? Because it's the company culture. It's not your family culture. It's not your personal culture. It's the company culture we are talking about. So what is it supposed to achieve? It's supposed to help the companies achieve their goals, get closer to their vision and objectives. Okay. Then once you have aligned on the company goals, and most companies should be able to do that, if not already, then what are the values that are needed for success? Once again, I've shared the 4 values for BrioHR. It's simple, it's fast, it's no, sorry for the word, it's no bullshit, but that's what we felt was the most useful and that we could observe day in, day out at BrioHR. But still, they have to be in line with the company goals. We want to be the largest HR software provider for the full Southeast Asia. So yeah, I won't do that if I have to micromanage you. I won't do that with you if I don't trust you, and so on, and so on, and so on. Then a very important step, in my opinion, that will really make or break, in my opinion, the values. What inspires me as a leader and then as an employee? We are all employees. We may or may not be leaders, managers, but we are all employees. Whether we are HR, whether we are in finance, whether we are in marketing, whether we are in production, we are employees and we may or may not be leaders. But because often the company culture will be driven by managers. Again, not only HR, but mostly managers will take the initiative and push the initiative and so on. It will also often end up being something that is purely management led. And then you sometimes I can see that I have this discussion with some people where they define the culture, they define the values and so on. Then they can literally black and white ready to enforce. And then last minute they realize, but I hate this. As a person, I hate this. I have written this, I have defined them, but I hate them. I would not want to work in this company. But you are the HR manager of this company. What do you think? So the point is, it's important to once again empathize with employees. You want to attract, retain, engage the best employees. You want to make them as proactive as can be and as aligned with the company mission. Then understand what they want. And because you are yourself an employee more often than not, start by asking yourself. And then of course, better if you ask a couple of others, but it's very important to reconcile what the boss would want. The boss would want to say, I want people working 20 hours a day, every day, and being twice as productive as they are today. Okay, cool. But if that stops here, I don't think a lot of employees will be attracted or retained for that matter. but then this can be turned to progressively into excellence. You know, even show up on time could be a company value. It's fine, but it's really about driving the behaviors in order to lead to the desired output. Once you have done that, there is a simple step of refining the values that were initially designed here, for the very reason that I mentioned, that the first try, the first design of values often requires a bit of self-critique and modification after we have put ourselves in the shoes of the employees. Refine the values and then live by them. Live by them mean it's not just a word on the wall. It's when you do the appraisal, when you do maybe a daily rostering pitch or whatever it is, then they have to be mentioned. So maybe it could be a monthly example of someone who has demonstrated the company value with a clear example. I don't know. Again, this I will not go into the initiatives because there are thousands of ideas that we could think of. But yeah, could be the value of the month, the value of the quarter, the value of the day, the trust day, and then everyone tells a colleague, "Hey, here is the last time I was super appreciative because I could feel that I could trust you to no end and so on." You know, again, I'm happy at the event next time, or even engage with us, engage with our team, engage with myself online and so on. I'm happy to to try and get to those discussions. Okay, so the current state in Malaysia with what we observe. It's not new, but over the past few years, there was more and more employee consciousness and demanding mindset regarding their own personal conditions, and they want the right work arrangement. So many people, when I was in this CEO and entrepreneur group, they were all saying that even if they were paying well for overtime, many people who used to do this overtime happily in the past didn't want to do the overtime anymore, resulting in a requirement to hire more people. So there are many things like this that it's very clear that times have evolved during COVID. Then, of course, it's not only a straight line. There is ups and downs in terms of more demanding, then maybe coming down, and so on and so on. But in general, the trend is more and more people want more and more, I would not necessarily say work-life balance, but at least want to have the right work arrangement and are ready to decline more money, to decline more perspectives at times if they feel the work environment is not right. The problem is the second point. The problem is the second point is that what we see is that many companies are not embracing the change in workforce mindset or looking at the people management holistically. Like same in this group that I'm referring to, every single time it was about how do I hire. I have problems hiring employees. I have problems retaining them. Those I have are not good. And then in the same sentence or in the same discussions, they would say, yeah, I don't want to pay them as much as the market pays, it's too high. Or I want them to work at least X hours of day, and which is too much. So there was, I just want them to punch in on time, clock in on time, and so on. Yeah, fine. You can decide that it is what you want, but it means that there is no adaptation to the times. And those companies who adapt, they are the ones who thrive. So today we see literally the focus is still largely on face time, pure time attendance, and how to automate penalty triggering automatically when something happens, versus ensuring that employees are proud to work in the company, and potentially would be willing to give more of their energy, more of their time if it was different. Obviously, in many jobs, in many companies, pure attendance is absolutely necessary. So obviously, it depends on the company. But many companies would absolutely need the attendance. Stop there, meaning that that's my point. Attendance is necessary. It's not bad inherently. But stop there, meaning that don't provide anything else that make those employees who are humans feel more considered. And often companies who absolutely don't need attendance, purely office-based and so on, still focus on this. And I know it because we are an HR software and we talk again to hundreds of people, and the attendance is actually a huge topic. Of course, we are super happy, and that's why also we managed to grow that much and so on. That other aspects, which are, in my opinion, more important for attraction, retention, productivity, engagement, and so on, they are also considered, luckily, but not enough. So think about what is currently the best practice or the practice in your company, and just do try to do an objective assessment. Do we actually provide a good employee experience? If I'm hired in this role, if my kid is hired in this role, if my siblings are hired in this role, would I be happy for them? Would I feel that they are satisfied, happy, engaged? No matter the job, we can always be happier than we may be today if the company was not, trying to provide a great experience and is now trying to. There will be a sensible difference, and it's not something that happens overnight. But literally, it's once again back to the mindset. And we feel as well, and we see and we hear a lot, that it is still very difficult to find foreign workforce. And they are in the same mindset as everyone else, rightfully less and less ready to accept any working conditions. You remember the taglines that I shared about earlier? Again, it's super important that anyone is considered as someone who might be, our next CEO, who might be our next top manager, and that they are given the right consideration. And often it doesn't cost much more time. Maybe we need the right tools, but it doesn't cost much more time. And it's also not necessarily more expensive, especially when you factor in the additional motivation and everything that will come with that. So what are the main considerations for company leaders? Literally, like the in this group that I'm working at, it's really founders or second gen, third gen owner of businesses, and they are exactly the same. All of us, all of them. To be clear, the number one topic of every company manager: attraction, retention. That's what I was saying, that it's actually not even since 1, 2, 3 years. It's been the same for like 50 years, maybe even more, but I have not discussed with anyone who has this experience. Okay, so where can employee experience be improved? So now I will do a radical switch from pure mindset, but I still really think that this mindset is the number one aspect to work on, because the rest, I would argue, is a bit more common sense. It can be thought through and it can be adapted. I will offer some some kind of a laundry list of ideas across different processes, laundry list at least of important aspects across recruitment, across onboarding, across performance, across admin. But without the right mindset, those efforts might not be sustainable. And if they are not sustainable and therefore not sustained over time, we are back in the situation where slowly there is no culture, or at least no perception of a culture, which can lead to a suboptimal culture, and in the end, difficulties to hire, difficulties to retain, and so on. So recruitment, onboarding, performance, administration, but actually everything is important. That's what I said earlier. The full employee journey can be covered by simple measures, but that require consistency, and once again, which can be fostered by having the right tools. All this on the foundation of the right mindset and culture. Okay. So if we start with recruitment, again, a bit of a laundry list here because I wanted to make it as practical as possible. What I had in mind is the mindset that we talked about so far is very important, is foundational, but it's also not something that maybe you can go back to work tomorrow morning and in a snap that's okay, you can implement. So that's why we also can discuss a bit more about this for those who want. But for the processes, recruitment, onboarding, performance management, admin, and so on, many things can be implemented by tomorrow, literally. And we have done it. We do it every day, and we do it also in our software and so on. But it's really something that we find easy to do. The only risk is companies who are doing who are experimenting the paralysis by analysis. That's the only risk. Otherwise, whatever you do tomorrow, you can, and I will here try to offer some important tips. So simple recruitment tips that go a long way. I insist on the simple. You probably have heard me, repeat simple many times. I'd rather something simple be done tomorrow morning than something amazingly advanced never done, never implemented. Okay, so for the interviews themselves, which are of course a key part of the recruitment activities, ensure you have up-to-date and handy job descriptions for each role and centralize them. Again, it seems obvious, but it is usually one of the main reasons why job search starts late. So just first, even engage the interviewers. Engage the interviewers by launching the job search timely, when it is the priority, when someone just decided to resign or when there is a job opening, and to have it handy in the good job description. But the full point here related to interviews is that job description should already be kind of an interview template in themselves. That's how they should be designed. They should not necessarily be designed as an advertising for a position or for the company, but they should be designed about, hey, if you fit those boxes, if you fit these personalities, if you have this experience, if you have these skills, and so on, then we will have this discussion in an interview, and that's how we will know that you are the right person. So the job description has to be clear in the first place and up to date with the requirement of the role. Again, seems obvious, but we've seen the problems, and we've been guilty at times of this at BrioHR. So I can only relate. Actually, we are launching soon a feature that will help you using the chat GPT that I'm sure you have all heard about in one way or another. Generate in literally a matter of seconds great job descriptions that are aligned with your company tone and everything. So looking forward to it. The second point is, don't assume that everyone is a good interviewer just because they are a manager. Guide them to easy to follow templates indicating what attributes to look for, what questions to ask. Again, this is driven by job description. Do we need a leadership ability for this job? If not, don't ask about leadership abilities. It's something that maybe you will build with the person over time as career development, but otherwise no need to ask. So it will also make it much easier to compare candidates objectively. If you have, for a given role, for every interviewer some predefined interview templates. Again, it's an interview, so it's still open, but it can be an interview template with like 3 or 4 categories, like leadership if relevant, technical skills if relevant, whatever it is, interpersonal skills and so on, and then just 1 or 2 questions for each that help have a structured and standardized interview process. People are not good interviewers by default. Sometimes even good interviewers, they are in a rush. They don't have the information. They don't even have the resume. They show up to the interview just because there was a calendar invite ringing 10 minutes before, and they were at lunch. Who didn't have that happening to him or her in a couple of times? So you're like, oh no, I need to go to this interview and so on, and then you're trying to figure out as you are in front of the candidate. If you have the information, the job description, if you know what job is it for, if you have a clear interview template to fill up, in 1 minute, you are ready to do the best interview possible. It doesn't end there. Of course, you have to deliver and to listen carefully, to ask the probing questions and so on. But in terms of preparation and in terms of objective evaluation, you're there. And then again, make sure you have at least a few questions to probe for the, not specifically to the role characteristics. For example, integrity, motivation, fit with the company and culture. Every single position benefits from having people that are aligned with the company overall. Every single position. I've heard countless times, no, but it's a basic, simple job, repetitive, entry level, and so on and so on. It doesn't matter. Who will smile to people passing by wearing the shirt with your company logo? It comes down to that. It comes down to that. Of course, that example is a bit extreme, but it comes down to that. If I talk about SHF services that I mentioned at the beginning of this chat, serving people in the canteens, honestly, could be considered simple, not influenced by culture and so on. But actually, they are way more exposed to people than I am. They have thousands of kids to adults, depending if it's a school or manufacturing or plant or whatever, passing by them, hoping that they will have a good portion of good food. Imagine the impact that those employees have on the company image, on the company culture, and so on. And reversely, the impact that the culture has on these employees. So again, it's important in every interviews to not stop to, hey, can you do the job? Yeah, sure, I can do the job. Okay, you're hired. And then maybe, oh, yeah, this one looks, a bit dodgy when he or she did that and this, but can do the job, so we take it in. But then, will they be the best employees? I don't know. Maybe yes, but it would be luck. Very importantly, it's not only the company, it's the candidate experience as well. So have a simple yet well-defined process with clear non-negotiable timelines to communicate, as well as consistent messaging. So timelines is the process is you will have 1 or 2 or 3 interviews, and one will be about this, one will be about that, and one will be about this. Timelines will be within 3 days after the interview, you hear back for us, and if you are moved on to the next stage, it will happen within the next 2 weeks. Whatever it is, you choose. There is no, there is no best practice. I would argue that the shorter, the better. But just having a process and living by it makes it simpler and makes it a much better experience for everyone, especially the candidate. Consistent messaging, rejection templates. If candidates are rejected for a role, doesn't mean they should be, ignored or forgotten. So on. I understand that it takes time to send the rejection notifications and so on. Yet, I think we all agree and we all say that at some point, of course, it has to be sent after an interview if the candidate is rejected and so on. But we all know that over time it's just forgotten and more, and then there are many candidates, many other things to do and so on. So we end up not sending the rejection emails. Having a template It's totally fine. We should not try to be the savior with personalized rejection emails, because it ends up not being done. Copy paste something. I mean, in Brio, it can be done automatically, but make sure that someone receives closure, a polite closure, sorry, but the position has been filled up, whatever you want to say. A lot say, yeah, it should not be standard answers and so on. I disagree, because the alternative is no answer at all. And then the candidate is like maybe receiving an offer from another company and waiting. I don't know, I cannot accept yet because I'm still hoping that this other company will hire me and so on. Whereas it's been already 2 weeks that you know you will not hire the candidate. So it's better to just move on, provide closure, and make it a habit. This process that you will have well defined, share it with the candidate. As I said, give them visibility, what will happen to them, what they can expect. So at least they know if and when they should follow up. If they have no news within the time frame you said they would have news, it would be fair to them to follow up. And actually, it would be even maybe easier for you that they follow up, because it's kind of a reminder. So share with the candidate. And finally, the one I see honestly too often. Don't ask candidates to come up 1 hour early or 2 hours early and fill up a 4-pager form, of which 90% of the information is useless. I've been there. I've asked people to fill this up in in my previous companies. I filled it up myself. Who cares about at the interview stage? Who cares about siblings' age or grandmother profession? Obviously, I'm exaggerating a bit, but that's what it is on this paper. The mother's job, father's job, everything. And then after the interview, because usually we will hire, I don't know, 1 in 10 candidates. So it means that 90% of this information is not only useless at this stage, but will end up in the bin. But you've stressed out the candidate by being 1 or 2 hours in advance to the office, alone in a room, filling up this useless form that you will then have to throw away, or put somewhere in a cupboard, and that will probably not even be used ever. Most of the information could be relevant, but at the onboarding stage, maybe you care about the siblings or the parents of your employees, but not of every candidate that you interview. And I'm sure I cannot see the screens of everyone, but I would hope to see some smiles in here, because I'm sure that almost no one can say guilty of this. I can say that I'm not guilty of this at least a couple of times, but actually it affects the candidate experience. Okay, so those are 6 tips for recruitment. Once again, we have on our website some guides about recruitment, about all processes that you may want to have a look at, or I'm sure you can find other resources. Anything that is done is better than something that is not done and implemented. The second one is onboarding. How do we make the onboarding memorable? Onboarding should be memorable. It's the first impression of an employee, of the company for an employee, and it should be memorable. Not so, not outright bad as it is in most companies today. Once again, guilty of this myself, even though onboarding has been a passion of mine for a long time. I've done a few conferences just centered on onboarding. So actually, I really genuinely think that it is extremely important. So first, pre-boarding, the whole time before the employee actually joins the company. So usually between offer letter and day 1. Do as if the new joiner, as soon as they sign the offer letter that you have extended to them, do as if the new joiner was already a full-fledged team member, a full-fledged colleague, and consider that they might be your potential future CEO. However junior, whatever position they will be occupying, if you think that this person tomorrow is your actual colleague with whom you might go for lunch and share a team bonding activity at the company outing or whatever it is, it makes it super different, because it's not just a name on paper that you have barely met, or maybe not met at all, and you just need to collect some information from. It's very different than saying, actually, I'm keen to know more about this person. I'm keen to offer a good experience and so on. A bit as for the recruitment, have a standard process and timing that is articulated around the official join date and plan backwards. Meaning, again, we all say we have some kind of it, but most often it will be maybe we have done it, maybe we have a checklist somewhere, but I hope again that I can see some smiles if I would see the screens, but most of the time it's just not sustained over time, which is normal. Once again, I think there is a problem with a lack of tools that would automate a large part of it, the reminders and so on. But more often than not, this process, as beautiful as it looks, is just not implemented and kept over the long term. So have this process. If the date is on a day D, make sure that D minus 3, D minus 7, D minus 1 month, whatever, some of the things happen. It will help you, of course, make sure that you can manage multiple onboardings, because candidates might be hired at different times, might join at different times, might have different notice period with their previous employer and so on. So the more standard, the better it is for yourself, but obviously for the new joiner. So that's why when you have this process, give it to them. Send them an email with just what will it look like for you? Why do we need that? When we will need that? Then you should expect this, and so on and so on. It's so much negative stress that goes away, and so much focus on positive stress of joining a new company that it's really worth it. And thirdly, for the pre-boarding, get them to come in, visit the office, meet some of their colleagues at least a week before the official day one. The goal is really to remove any apprehension and focus day one on the serious stuff. Once they are in the company, day one, they are in the company. So now your challenge is to make them as proactive as possible and so on. Same, communicate documents to read and go through. For example, the employee handbook. Usually on day one, it's painful. It's a painful day for everyone in a new company because you're stressed. You don't know if you will be capable, if you will be up to expectations. You don't know people. You don't know if they are nice. You don't even know where are the toilets. Where you might want to go for a toilet break. You are stressed just because of that. So imagine how many sources of stress you can have on the day one. So get the things away as much as possible in advance. If they come to a department gathering, team gathering, or even just with a buddy, appoint a buddy, we will basically take them through the office for half an hour and maybe offer them a lunch, offer or not. By the way, again, I said it doesn't have to be expensive, but it will change everything because when you come in on day one, someone will be expecting you that you have already met. You have already, been made aware of how things work in the company and so on. So all you can focus is, where you will sit, getting a bit acquainted with more colleagues, and that's it. So really engage them physically in person before day one. And again, some might say, yeah, it's valid for some jobs, it's less valid for other jobs. Yeah, of course, I can agree to that, obviously, but many more jobs than we tend to think are eligible for this kind of advanced, advanced meeting with the team and so on before the official day one. On day one itself, the first thing is that there seems to be a rule, a globally accepted rule, for nothing to be ready on day one and no one to be available. I've been there, done that. Just change that. Just change that. Just make sure that when someone is coming for his or her day one, that someone is there and aware and ready to guide them a little bit. It doesn't mean spending the full day. Show them the toilet so that they don't stress when they go. Make sure that everything is ready. Equipment, free and clean desk. I arrived in a company. I had no clue about something that I should have been told on day one. I arrived, there was barely a desk for me, and then finally a desk was found away from the team I was supposed to manage, very far. And on that desk, there were still like dirty cups of coffee. Honestly, let's just make sure the desk is okay. It takes literally 10 seconds, and it's not a bad job, meaning that anyone should actually do that and make sure that it is done before the new joiner arrives, because it has such a huge impact. Oh, actually they were expecting. Oh, actually I feel welcome. It's very different from sitting at the other side of the building when your team actually is supposedly to be beside you, and getting a super dirty, old, dusty desk that just no one wanted to take, and so on. And finally, for onboarding, arrange for any activity. Any activity doesn't have to be fancy. Day one is not supposed to be the most productive. Once again, can differ on the type of job. Maybe if you hired an experienced person for manufacturing activities, you want them to directly be able to be productive. Why not? Fine. But in most jobs, day one will not be changing the life of the company. However, if day one is done properly, it will make a huge difference on future engagement and productivity levels of that person. If on day one this person has met the relevant people, has been made aware of the relevant tools they have at their disposal in order to do the job, and they feel comfortable because they already have one or two familiar faces to go for lunch or snack with, it will make a huge difference on the 1,000 following days. Who cares about day one except if it is to prepare the 1,000 following days? So again, empathize. How did you feel when you joined the company that you're in? And maybe if this one was amazing, honestly, I've not seen many onboarding that were amazing. But if this one was amazing, how did you feel one day when you had a suboptimal onboarding? And just think about how to make it better and make sure that you make it better. I think this will be the last example. So I will go a bit faster, but it's performance management. In many companies, we see infrequent, backward-looking transactional processes, performance evaluation processes. They often involve a yearly review, trying to assess work done up to a year before, without proper discussions throughout the year, and sometimes on the spot itself, just like an Excel file or a Word file to fill up. This cannot really work, right? You know, imagine 2020. I love this example. It was a very difficult year for most of us. But if you had said to someone at the beginning of 2020, next year, I want you to become a leader in the company, so you will manage project XYZ, which will happen in May. You say that in January 2020. Mid-March, full lockdown, the world stops, no in-person meetings, you can only be at home, most businesses stops, and so on. If you do nothing and wait until December of 2020 to say, okay, let's review, how did you perform? Show me the KPIs we defined together in January 2020. Oh, you actually failed at this. You were supposed to lead the project. Yeah, but I cannot remove this objective altogether. You know, so my point is, it's always better to do it maybe shorter meetings, but more frequently. So first, define KPIs and objectives as early as you can in the year. Not doing it will create issues. Obviously, no one wants to be evaluated against a KPI that was defined on the 15th of December, that was obviously not objective, because it's clearly done, afterwards, after knowing how the year went for the company and so on. So suddenly, if you have done a super sales year, you might artificially define super high KPIs so that salespeople who have done an amazing job actually are not necessarily compensated fairly. So just agree on KPIs and objectives as early in the year. Can be monthly, can be quarterly in the year, anything, but not doing it will create issues. Doing it late will take a lot of time. And when it's early in the year, it can be used as a super clear guideline. And that's how people can give their best. If I know that that's what I have to do, and it seems to be reachable, even though I have to push a bit, it's a bit stretched, but it's doable, I am much more likely to do it than if I don't know, if I just show up and do what I'm told day in, day out, without thinking about the impact of my on my future salaries, compensation, commissions, bonus, whatever it is. Foster regular reviews. The only way to ensure the company is going in the right direction is to have regular reviews. It is ensuring that as we progress, everyone is doing a good job. If you have objectives that are defined for the year in January, at the end of Jan, at the end of Feb, at the end of March, at the end of April, just have a chat, review the progress, and see whether the employee and the company are going in the right direction. The objective of the KPIs is not to punish or sanction at the end of the year. The objective of the KPIs is that if everyone is achieving the KPIs, the company is thriving. Everyone is better off if the company is thriving. But it's, of course, much easier to ensure this happens if you have a forward-looking regular view, which is almost akin to coaching, right? So many of our clients will actually do semi-annual performance reviews, sometimes quarterly reviews, but will also add, at least on a monthly basis, some one-on-ones. The advantage of those one-on-ones, which are chats between employees and managers, is that they honestly can last 5 or 10 minutes, but it will make it not only forward-looking and more likely for people to, to get help, to get the help they need if they need some and so on, but also it will make the end of year or the half yearly review also 5-10 minutes. Everyone hates doing, at least the administrative part of it, doing the end of year performance appraisals because it takes hours and you have so many to do. But if you have actually done it many times already during the year, it's fairly easy. As always, provide visibility to your employees. So when are the key milestones? When are the key dates? Nothing is a secret. Just share with your employees so that they know exactly when they will have to submit their appraisal form and so on, because it will give them the opportunity to think ahead and to make it a bit more constructive and researched task, rather than saying, oh, wow, I just received an email, it's for tomorrow. Okay, let's do it now over lunch. The quality will not be the same, but the impact on the company will therefore also not be as good as it could have been. Finally, have at least a basic competency management framework. Many of our clients, they have super advanced frameworks, but actually, I don't necessarily advocate for too advanced, especially if you don't have it yet. If you're already used to an advanced competency management framework, that's great. But many of our clients, they have none, and usually we help them develop a simple framework, sometimes leveraging just their company values. So, for example, if I just make the parallel with the example of BrioHR, we had 4 values. It could be turned into 4 competencies. The idea is that we start with something. Then maybe 1 year, 2 years, 5 years later, we can develop and get to a more advanced competency management framework. But we would have built the muscle, the competency evaluation muscle, in advance of that. So the full point, and this very last point illustrates it well, is better to start small and start simple tomorrow. And I wanted to make it a bit heavy, this checklist style kind of items, because I really do think that those, they can be implemented within a couple of days. Again, the mindset, as I talked earlier, is a bit different. I think we can basically skip a bit this one, but it's just to say that in the end, engagement can happen everywhere. And that will be my conclusion. It's not only about new areas and new processes around recruitment, performance management, onboarding. Even when thinking about the current day-to-day administrative aspects, we have a chance of engaging our employees. Just making something less painful. For example, if they can get their pay slips on mobile in just a tap of the mobile, it's already so much better than having to ask and then they don't know when they will have it, and a couple of days later, unless the person is on leave, they will receive it, but then in the meantime they try to have a loan with the bank. You see, every time we remove some pain, we actually increase the engagement via the decrease of potential disengagement. But again, back to the first part of the discussion, perhaps more importantly, it is about empathizing and placing the human back at the center of the discussion. And we tend to forget this. Again, I know that everyone thinks, yeah, that's what I do, that's what I think of every day, and so on. But in fact, in the day-to-day, when we sit down for our job every day, we think processes, we think issues to solve, and so on, but we seldom think about empathy. And it is valid for all jobs, all companies, all stakeholders, all humans. So for this, HR needs to proactively save themselves some time. It can be first by designing simple yet effective processes. I mentioned that a couple of times, or by leveraging the right tools to both design those processes and implement them. Obviously, I mentioned tech and tools throughout, but basically everything that I discussed today can be automated in a way. So the way we see it, for example, at BrioHR is really to empower HR teams. So we are not automating the human aspect of it. We are automating everything else. So that then the discussion can be a real value-added listening, talking, empathizing discussion, because the admin, the email reminder, the whatever, is done by us in an automated way. Happy to share more. You can scan here, I think, to be in touch with our team if you want. So feel free to take out the phones and just scan this in order to chat with the team. You can visit our website. Again, they are free. Everything is free, obviously, but guides about recruitment, guides about performance management, guides about processes, and so on. So reflecting a bit what I've been sharing today. And again, I'll happily see you at the event in June. And again, maybe in the meantime, if you want to reach out to me, I'm very happy to. Again, thank you very much. All right. So I think we're good.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Benjamin Croc. So I believe that we have a couple of questions from our audience. So I hope that Mr. Benjamin could be ready anytime soon.
Sure, happy to. Is there any question? I see a question from Fatin Aris, yes. What can we do if HR have done all necessary and thorough JD for each position, but management come back to us with candidates on different offer of position? What can be done in the HR position? So I just maybe want to make sure that I understand the question right. So does it mean that a candidate that was offered for a specific position is then how to say asked to join a different one? If that's the case, I would say that first, on the spot, it can always be okay, but I can understand if it's not ideal. So the first step, obviously, that I would take is to talk to the candidate and be very transparent about the fact that, hey, maybe actually the JD you applied for in the end will not be exactly the job that we think you would thrive in. So I think it's good to, if it's the case, obviously it has to be true. But if it's the case, I think it's good to discuss with the candidate and say, actually, we have been impressed by your resume. We enjoyed the interviews with you, and so on. However, given the need in the company, if it's of interest to you, we would like to offer you that position. Obviously, the candidate might say, no, sorry, I didn't apply for this kind of job. I don't want to do this. I wanted to do the initial one. Thank you very much for your consideration, but I'm not interested. If that happens, I think it's fair. It's fair to give the candidate a very transparent and thorough explanation and also present it in a positive way. But it's also fair to accept if they are not interested with a job that initially they didn't apply to. Maybe actually they will be keen and say, oh yeah, sure, I would be happy to, thanks for proposing. Actually, maybe they will be grateful. So that's the first step with the candidate himself or herself. But definitely, I would really be a bit adamant that there needs to be a discussion with the management, a nice discussion, a constructive discussion, but to say, hey, how we avoid that? Because everyone has invested a lot in having the right candidates. This person we liked the profile and so on, and we offer the job. But in the end, we are told that it's not the job that we will in the end offer to this candidate, and the candidate is dropping on us. So we all wasted a lot of time and energy. Maybe the company wasted money in addition to that. So I would have this discussion with the management in a very constructive way. I would say that this happens, and that's why I was saying earlier that it's not about solving everything right away, but it's about taking step by step and having this discussion is probably the first step, especially because you are asking this question. I could assume that it happens regularly. So that's a real thing to fix, because indeed it's not comfortable for anyone. So it's maybe the first step to fix this process is to say, hey, could we have a quick 1 hour discussion, and you prepare and you explain with 2 or 3 examples in a very gentle and constructive way why you think it is harming the company to do that, and what you propose for it to avoid. Maybe a 1 step earlier double validation of the candidate profile to make sure that we agree on the right job description and job. And if it's agreed upon, then there is no change after a certain point. But again, I think the most important here is to have a concrete discussion. Yeah, okay, we have a second question. What is the best practice on succession planning via talent management? Do we go with full transparency among all staff on the talents identified as successor, or limited to management only? I would promote as much transparency as you want, as you can. Why I would promote that is because when you want to have someone ready for a position, it's not about firing the other person. I'm not saying it can never happen, but it's not about firing another person. It's about making sure that this person can be promoted, him or herself, laterally, or horizontally, or vertically to a more higher responsibility job, and so on. It's to manage the situation in case this employee resigns. And anyway, when someone resigns, usually they will be tasked to train their successor. And also, and that's something that I feel is not always discussed, but it's supposed to allow that person to go on leave with peace of mind. So if this person has been able to know and train and share some tips to a potential successor, this successor will be ready on the go. If the person currently in the job has a sick leave for 3 days, has another problem, resigns, needs to go on leave, but during the leave there is an emergency, and so on and so on, the company will be better off having full transparency in terms of succession planning, who is actually your backup. And it usually is implied that if you leave, this person is well positioned to replace you. I personally think it's healthier this way. And in cases where, maybe the current employee is really having some issues, and this cannot be solved through, genuine tries to improve the performance, the attitude, and so on, and this employee ends up, in a PIP and threatened to be terminated at some point. Yeah, in this specific case, it might be a bit tense. The fact that, hey, you do that because you already know my successor and so on. But actually, I think it's a fairly seldom case. I think it also helps people who might not have the best attitude to stay on their toes and potentially to perform better if they know that, yeah, we are ready without you. So just make sure that you have the right attitude and that you perform well. So, all in all, I think there is a lot of advantages for transparency, and also there will be no, political games and so on, or at least not undercover political games or rotting conflicts that you don't know of. I'm an advocate for transparency as much as possible in general, and I've seen it work well. Doesn't come without its challenges. Sometimes you are questioned by other people. They come and they say, hey, I don't understand, I should be the successor. But if you do things genuinely and objectively, you should be able to have an answer to those persons as well. Then it's maybe the answer will be that you need to improve this or that, and so on and so on. So yeah, I don't think there is a one answer, but I do think that there is a value in transparency in any case. Okay. I hope it was helpful. How to educate management, the director, to treat staff well so that there is no high turnover rate on the company. Thank you in advance. It's difficult and easy at the same time. The management usually should be, I would say, tasked with making sure that the company is going into the right direction and achieve objectives. Achieving company objectives, and what I'm sharing right now is actually part of what discussion you could have. But achieving the company goals also implies, again, channeling the company resources well. So if it is clear that the attitude of the management, specific person, management, director, whatever, is causing the turnover, for any reason, it can be a direct reason, like being super harsh to people and so on, or it can be an indirect reason, like really doing nothing so that people feel well and respected and so on. In any case, if this happens, they are not stewarding the resources of the company to the most efficient way, which is usually what they want to. So potentially they are not necessarily aware that this is causing harm. And if they are aware, potentially you could have maybe, I don't know, a few support, I would say, in the company that you turn to have this discussion and build a case, not against the director. I'm not at all saying it in a conflictual manner, but building a documented case to say, hey, you know, I've spoken to managers. It seems that in each team, there were occurrences of high turnover following this or that event. So it would be great if we put this or this in place. I think the most important for any discussion with someone more senior than you, the management, top management, director level, and so on, I think what they want is to know that you can handle things. So I think the most important is to come with a proposal, like facts which again ideally should not be conflictual or too emotional, but yeah, this happened, and in some people say that it has been linked to high turnover and so on and so on. So here is what we should suggest, maybe some best practices coming and so on, which would apply to everyone in the company, not only to that specific director. So you see, it's really about, in my opinion, building a case that they cannot, you know, they might say, I don't care, but it's up to them. It's up to them to take responsibility of the situation. Most, if you have the right approach, I don't think will say, I don't care. They will say, there are facts. It's kind of demonstrated. There is a proposal. It makes sense. Okay, let's give it a try. Once again, as everything, this people issue, it's a people issue, or it's a people situation, cannot be fixed overnight. So once this person has finally listened and heard and accepted that there was something to change, it's only the beginning. It's about, on a very regular basis, doing some reports. Hey, this month we have seen a positive effect of the policy or whatever discussion we had a month ago, and we had a couple less turnover and so on. Then the following month, one more, hey, this month. So maybe it warrants a monthly kind of update from there on for a couple of months, so that the person doesn't revert too soon to the deep bad behaviors that maybe have been seen in the past. So yeah, document, have an objective view of the situation, documented with like examples and data and proposals for the next. And it's true for any single process or situation, actually, I think. I think you're on mute.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Benjamin Croc from BrioHR, with very, very good insight of HR, especially in recruitment to, according to the webinar title, Recruitment to Retention, building a strong workforce.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt. It's just that I see a last question. Do we have time for a last question, or it just popped in?
Okay, just now there was, it was a last question, but I think we have another question coming in. Wow. So, all right. So
Maybe let's take this one because it's also a very important one, I think. How do we pick the right person to become mid-management? What are the characteristics of this person? Thanks for the question, Rennie. I think the first thing that I would say is to avoid a common mistake in picking mid-management people. We tend to choose people who have demonstrated a great level of individual contributor skills thinking. So my issue is not about picking them, but my issue is about thinking that they will adapt by themselves. It happens super often that people who have no experience in management, but who have the potential to be a mid manager, ends up failing because they didn't receive the right guidance. It's a totally new job, totally different, even if it's managing the same team that they were part of just before. It's a totally new job. So I think the first thing is, independently of the right person to become mid-management, it's about making sure that they are supported through the transition. And how to support them through the transition, it's important that the communication with their team members, who might sometimes be their former colleagues, is properly done, so that there is no jealousy, there is no, it's always happening, and it's fine actually. But the more we communicate, the more we prepare, usually the better it is, and the more favorable it is for the newly appointed mid manager. So yeah, they are the right contributors. They are high performer, individual contributors. They are promoted to mid management. Make sure the communication around is super clear, and do the extra level. It doesn't mean that, once again, HR has to do the communication, but maybe the manager above, or whoever in the company that is in the position to do so, should make sure that the door is open to support this newly appointed manager, but also to support others, and to communicate, to make sure there is oil in the engine, so that it just runs seamlessly. And then I think exactly. So then it's really, and it's normal. There is often a lot of stress and so on. Some people will be overconfident, and it's fine, and they might fail a bit, but then manage. Some people will be underconfident. Those really just need to be put in a position where they are trusted, but most importantly, that they have the support of their direct reports. That's where the communication is super important, but not from them only. The communication from the company management, from whoever is again involved, is super, super important for this person to feel supported, and for the overall thing to go smoothly, because the team accepts the promotion or the appointment or anything. Then I think, if I want to finish on a very clear, I think, thing to avoid is, if someone has shown a red flag, or even a dark orange flag in terms of attitude, think twice. Think twice, because as I said during the call, mid-management is where it breaks. So if the message is super clear, super positive, coming from the different layers, and then you have a manager who is basically, in some cases, toxic, then you know that the full team below can be impacted with toxic messaging and so on. So two things: support newly appointed mid managers, even if they have been promoted or brought from external, or brought from another team, or whatever it is. But also, the only thing I will not do is to promote someone who has not shown the amazing attitude. I'd rather have someone who is maybe slightly less performing as an individual contributor, but who has shown positive attitude, constructive attitude, resilience, and people skills. Thanks. Okay, I think this time we're good. Sorry for that.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Benjamin Croc. So I think it's time we about to end our webinar. And then before we go, so please, if you have anything, you can visit BrioHR website, and as well as Malaysia HR Forum website. I think it is stated in comment as well, right? And then before we left, so this we will show the video showcase from our conference. So everyone is welcome to join our Malaysia HR Forum Conference and Exhibition 2023, which also BrioHR will be joining, right? Yes.
We will be joining and hoping to see you all in person and have a good time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ben. Thank you, BrioHR, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much to the Malaysia HR Forum team and Arul for having us, and thank you everyone, for being here and asking questions and so on. Hope it was useful to everyone.
All right. Bye bye. Bye bye then.